Welcome, everyone, to Bethesda Gaming Saga. I'm Steve-O.
And I'm Eldon the Noble. Join us as we journey through some of gaming's most immersive and ambitious games ever made. Today we are going to introduce ourselves, tell a little bit about who we are, our first experiences in Bethesda Game Studio Games, and our favorite of their games. So Steve-O, why don't you tell us a little bit about your earliest memory into gaming?
Well, I can tell you my earliest memory is absolutely the Nintendo Entertainment System. I was about 6, 1987. I was sick with the flu, and I can still picture the living room. I can even smell the house. It was so detailed. And when my dad brought it home, because until that point, I had no experience with gaming. My older sister had an Atari, but I was too young to play it. And he brought home the NES, Super Mario with the Duck Hunt. And I was sick, but I got up to play because I was mesmerized. I thought for sure that as I played, days went by, even weeks. It was just insane how addicting that game was. And since then, I never looked back.
Yeah.
I
feel that.
How about you, Eldon? I'm sorry about that.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. So, I remember a Duck Hunt. See, my earliest gaming was a little bit of the NES, a little bit of the Super NES. It's kind of difficult for me to really remember because of how young I was, but I remember some of my earliest memories being, Super Mario Brothers, Duck Hunt. Duck Hunt was one of those games that was like really cool, but it was also very odd to me because of how you pointed it at the TV. I wasn't very good, but I remember thinking, technologically speaking, this was really cool. But those are some of my earliest memories. Not that it made the biggest impact for me. In fact, when I think about, really dove into for me that made the biggest impact in my earliest gaming was the Nintendo 64. I remember the Christmas we got the Nintendo 64. And I remember I loved that. I played that console so much. I had
any certain game that sticks out in your mind?
Yeah, we had Mario 60. Over the course of owning it, we had Mario 64, Mario Kart, Star Fox. Those were some of the ones that were really, really big. And as we continue talking about my experiences, you'll hear me reference my father a couple times because he is a gamer and he was very instrumental into me finding gaming. And I remember he had his games on the N64 that he liked. He had Banjo-Kazooie. That was one that he really loved. But even still, around that time, we still had a Super Nintendo. And some of my earliest games or earliest memories beyond just a gaming experience by myself, but with other people, was me and my father playing Killer Instinct, a fighting game from the Super NES. And we used to love that game, playing that together. But that is, console, those early Nintendo consoles were some of my earliest memories, man. Yeah,
I can remember the graphics were so insane with Killer Instinct because you look back at them now and they're like, oh my gosh, how did we think this was top tier, graphics?
Yes, I remember when, so after the Nintendo 64, we kind of we went through the PlayStations. We kind of became a PlayStation family. And I remember me and my father, we were, I don't know why we were in Toys R Us. I think we were there for somebody else who was doing some shopping. But this was before the PS2 came out, and they were really hyping it up, marketing, and they were showing the new Madden game. See, me and my dad both like football, especially college football. And we saw the new Madden game that was for the very beginning of the PS2 generation, and I remember us thinking, oh my gosh, those graphics are incredible. That is so next level. This looks like just real life, like we could reach out and touch them. And looking back at it, it is so funny that we thought that.
That was for me, as far as sports goes, it was I think it was NFL 2K, which they only made like 2K and like 2K I think 2K01, I can't remember. It was the coolest to me because it actually had Sports Center clips in it. And
Yeah.
it made me think like, oh my gosh, it's like when I create my character, I'm really in Sports Center. And looking back at it now, like the graphics were so terrible.
Right.
But to intervene there too, you said PlayStation really got me thinking about if I had to say not my earliest memory, but my most influential memory in a case was Final Fantasy VII for the PS1. It came out and I was 15, I think, 1997 when I came out.
Yeah.
And my buddy got it, who lived down the street. He said, you got to try this game. We would go over like all winter long trying to beat it because it was turn-based game. And I never thought I'd ever like a turn-based game, but that story enthralled me to where I can't tell you the amount of hours I put into it, because the rumor was you could get different endings.
Right.
And like there was no truth to that, but we didn't have the internet to double check us back then.
Right.
So like we spent hours. We're like, what are we doing wrong? We beat this game for the 10th time. Why do we get the same ending? But absolutely, the music. I still have the music on my Spotify playlist from the original game. It just, still gives me goosebumps.
I never got into those games, but it is, you cannot take away the profound impact that Final Fantasy VII had in gaming. So that is completely understandable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Now, when it goes to talking about other games too, I know that, when it comes to PC, which I didn't get into till, I don't know how many years later. I think it was like 2005, maybe. A buddy of mine convinced me to build a PC for Battlefield 3 alone. And he helped me, so it was good because I didn't know what I was doing. But as soon as I got on, he's like, hey, it's keyboard and mouse. You got to live with it. Couldn't do it. No way, no chance. Not my fingers do not operate that way. Still, if you put a gun to my head and said I had to play keyboard and mouse successfully, that's game over right there.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I believe it or not, my start into PC gaming was around the same era. And for me, for the longest time, I wasn't a big fan of mouse and keyboard. I mean, the games that I played in my first really getting into PC gaming, which I'll go over in a second, did require mouse and keyboard. But when possible, as I continued to get into PC gaming, I would prefer a controller. Then throughout the years, as I tried games normally I was playing on a controller, like BGS games, and I played on mouse and keyboard, I fell in love with the mouse and keyboard system. But I know a lot of people prefer the controller setup. But for me, my earliest memories in PC gaming, where I really got into it, are 3 games that I look back at. And honestly, these type of games are still the bulk of what I play on the PC, these genre of games. So for me, I had Roller Coaster Tycoon, SimCity, and Age of Empires. Those 3 games were really big to me. My sister got me the first Age of Empires for Christmas one year. We actually got Roller Coaster Tycoon through I think it was Tostino's. One of those frozen pizzas, if you send in enough UPCs, they give you something like that. Yeah. And then my dad had been playing the SimCity games, and SimCity 3000 was the one that I first started to learn, and then I spent a lot of time on SimCity 4. But those kind of games are some of the earliest memories I have and some of the biggest ones for me. What about you in terms of PC games?
Really, really almost similar to a T. SimCity for sure was. I remember the alien attacks. I don't remember if it was a cheat code or if it just happened naturally, but the aliens would eventually attack, and the frustration, but also the happiness of rebuilding after a natural disaster. Roller Coaster Tycoon too, absolutely one of my first gaming memories. But really, when I bulked down to it. My earliest gaming memory, if I had to put it on the spot, I would see even further along, because as far as PC, because I was a console guy through and through. I was anti PC. I was like, if you don't come at me with the PC's better. It's console all the way. And I remember, this is no joke, just about 4 years ago, my son wanted VR really bad. And the only VR out there was the HTC Vive, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And you had to have a PC for it. So I was like, I'm going to do it for him. I need a new PC for work anyway. So we split the money, got him VR, and he liked the VR a little bit. But when he wasn't playing it, I couldn't believe how quick everything loaded. The graphics, the optimization, the things you could change. So my first, weird as it sounds, my very first influential PC thing that I can really credit that to is Call of Duty. Like I remember playing it with my friends. I'm like, it's on a PC, but I can use a controller. This is phenomenal.
Right. Yeah. I 100% understand that. Yeah. The PC experience is definitely unique, a unique experience compared to consoles. And I mean, when you think about Bethesda, Bethesda Game Studios games, when you think about their games on PC versus console, my first experience with a BGS game was actually on console. For me, my first experience with BGS games was not actually me playing it, but my father. So we had just gotten the PS3. Nice. This was kind of early on in the very beginning of the PS3 generation, I believe. And my dad had just gotten like a nice new cutting edge TV. It was a 1080p TV, which this was again, let's see, I'm trying to think of when this was. Maybe 2008, 2007. So that was cutting edge TV technology. And that TV stayed relevant for like another decade. So he booted up. He'd been looking for a game to really sink his teeth into on this new console generation. Instead of playing a little bit of this and that, he wanted one game to really dive into. And I remember he was between Elder Scrolls Oblivion. He had never played an Elder Scrolls game before. And then the first Assassin's Creed game was out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was kind of back and forth. And he ended up going with Oblivion. And I remember he was playing it and he was going through that opening dungeon and stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. And I was noticing, like, in my head, I'm like, this is getting boring. I hope the game is more than this. And then I remember he walked out of the dungeon for the first time. And it was nighttime, and to see the starry sky, and again, this is a brand new, like, TV. We had like old, like, those tube TVs beforehand. I believe. So the graphics quality of both, not only the game, but the TV, I remember my jaw dropped to be able to look at the sky and see the stars and the mountains, and knowing, the marketing talk of if you can see it, you can go there, and just seeing that, it blew. My mom was watching too, and it was like incredible to her too. I remember that, and it was so huge. Well, it turned out to be me and my father bonding experience. So he ended up getting the big old thick guidebook, and while he played it, I guided him through it. So he would be like, all right, where do we need to go next to complete this quest? And I would turn to the page. All right, we need to go here. All right, to complete this puzzle, what do we need to do? And I would guide him through so much, and that was such a huge memory for me in gaming. Both the step out moment of Oblivion, but then going through that with my father is just an incredible moment that I hope to share with my son one day. But what about you? And that was, again, I didn't play BGS games on PC till much, much later. Mm-hmm. And now I wouldn't want to play BGS games on anything else. Yeah. But what was your first experience with BGS?
Well, first, let me say that's a wonderful experience because I know how the bonding can be. My son and I experience that now with games, even sometimes things I don't like, but just to do it with him means more to me. And I'm sure the same thing with your dad, doing it with him like that, reading through the guidebook, which I still have that guidebook. I will absolutely put a picture on our Discord and Twitter of that when I can. But so honestly, though, same thing for me. First BGS game was Oblivion, and I cannot for the life of me tell you how I made it my first game. I don't remember if I just decided to play it because I had was it Gamefly? Do you remember that? Like where you could rent the games?
I always wanted to try that.
So I did that, and I remember it was like Columbia Music House for me. I don't know, that tells my age right there, but like where you could get it and like use a fake name and then just never pay the bill. Like it was one of those. But I mean, my buddy did that. He's one talking me into it. I didn't do that because my parents would kill me. But I remember renting it for Xbox 360. I think it was the 360. And that, I mean, it just blew my mind because I hadn't played, Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, it's an open world, but kind of sandboxy in the same aspect. But Oblivion, to play that fully immersed, do whatever you want. There's no hill you can't climb, no water you can't jump into. But the system behind it, how you could craft, or I can't remember if you could craft in that game, but how you could find the weapons. I mean, everything you searched through was valuable, whether it was a cup you used to trade or fish you had to eat or, anything to get a perk, a bonus, a negative. I mean, Oblivion, it blew my, and then when I poured hours into it and beat it, it was like that, just that mind blowing, like, oh my gosh, how did I do this? This is, it was like a drug.
Yeah.
It was like, how can I get more of this? Give me more now.
Right. Well, for me, the drug was the going anywhere and this being, I'd never really experienced a truly open world game like a BGS. So for me, that was what really, whoa, I can just walk around and go wherever was really amazing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I tell you, that was still your story with your dad and you guys doing that is just it really touched a heartstring with me because that's a great bonding moment, and I know it's something you guys will never forget.
Oh yeah, that is definitely true. Yeah. So since now we're talking about BGS games, we both love BGS. I mean, that's what this podcast is dedicated to. For the most part, is just our love of BGS games. So, what is your favorite BGS game?
My favorite all time up to this point, because Starfield isn't released yet, of course,
right.
is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim.
Yep.
I think playing Oblivion, then I went back and played Morrowind, even though that's like a step down in what you're doing. It was still fun. But after those two and Skyrim, at the time, I don't remember even like the anticipation like I feel now with Starfield. I think because the internet just wasn't the thing then, where you see it every day. But now, like when Skyrim was announced and you saw the trailer and you saw everything, I was just like, what? Like, are you kidding me? And then when I first played it, the very first opening thing, like, hey, he's awake now, just like, oh my gosh. And then there's dragons. And then there's your character creation, which you spend so much time on, but that's my top tier. Now, how about yours, Eldon? What would you say your favorite is?
So for me, honestly, it took a long time for me to play my own BGS game by myself. And my first one that I really dove into myself, and my favorite to this day, is Fallout 4. Now, a lot of people say, and now after playing Fallout 4, I went back and played the first two Fallouts, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, and I played some Fallout 76. So I played through all the Fallouts. A lot of people say that's, I understand the critique that Fallout 4 is a bad Fallout, because when you look at the hardcore role-playing systems of the older one, it's not there. But as a video game, I think Fallout 4 is truly outstanding. What I love about Fallout 4 is the gameplay type of variety, what struck me. So if you want to go and do the main quest, you can go do that. If you want to spend way too much time building a town, you can do that. If you want to get to know the different factions that you can interact with, you can do that. If you want to spend time min-maxing your weapon crafting and your mods and all of that, you can do that, and then you can interact with the game. I mean, the variety of gameplay loops within the game is truly amazing, and I'm a big fan of the Fallout series. I've always loved kind of retro 1950s music and imagery and stuff, even before Fallout, and that's one of the reasons why I fell in love with Fallout. But Fallout 4 would definitely be my favorite. I have played some Oblivion by myself and some Skyrim. I've done a different of the Elder Scrolls, but for me, there's a special place in my heart for the Fallout series, for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, definitely I won't do any spoilers on here, but just the storytelling in Bethesda in general, but Fallout 3 and 4 specifically, I mean, both were great. I mean, I see people mock them, but I think they're great.
And as far for me, as much as I would put Fallout 3 kind of lower on the list in terms of Fallouts, the introduction to the Fallout 3 in terms of the first few hours where you're building your character until you have that step out moment is one of the best in gaming, period. You're growing with your character. Again, not to spoil for anybody that's not played it. The way you grow with your character is truly, truly amazing. And that's what, we love about BGS games, is stuff like that.
A side note, what got me to play Fallout, because I wasn't focused solely on like Bethesda in general games, but was that I found that Liam Neeson was voicing one of the main characters. I was like, I love Liam Neeson. Like, we got to play this game now. Must be the real deal.
Yeah, and see, I didn't grow up playing Fallout 3 or New Vegas. My first Fallout game was Fallout 4, but going back and playing, Fallout 3 and then experiencing, Liam Neeson, and then New Vegas. Oh, I felt just the way I fell hard for Fallout 4, I fell really hard for New Vegas to meet the different factions like the Kings and stuff like that. Just, it was such a wonderful game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, Guys, on the next episode, I'll give you a little heads up. We're going to look at Starfield Direct. Now, it's been a little over a month now, but we want to try to catch everybody up to speed on our thoughts of the largest info dump that we've got yet. And we're going to be looking at what excites us the most and what was most unexpected.
Now, if you would like to hear more of this podcast and get extra content that includes us discussing our Desert Island video game, most memorable gaming moment, and Q&A with us, then head over to our Patreon to unlock the extended show.
Until next time, guys, this has been Steve-O.
And Eldon the Noble for Bethesda Gaming Saga. May your adventures be filled with Nuka-Cola.
And never, ever end with an arrow to the knee.